Chiefs are set to blast off for week 2 of the preseason against the Washington Commanders. Watch who needs to take a step forward to earn their keep on this roster, and what are the surprises that we might see coming. That's all today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. Nice to see you. We are Locked On Chiefs today, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for free. Thanks for making us your first listen. Grab another Locked On show for your second listen. We have a ton to talk about in terms of where this team is going. Couple of injuries we need to go over that we didn't get to talk about yesterday when Joe Marino and I got together about the Mahomes-Allen kind of golf partnership / competition. A lot to see there. Go back and watch and listen to that if you didn't get a chance. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, NFL33.com, and RGRFootball.com.
And you were just basically everywhere on the internet. I'm Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner. I actually just had my second roster prediction come out. This was on defense and special teams, just came out as of this recording about 10 minutes ago. So go check that out. Got a little bit more coming over the next couple of weeks. Going to do a couple more roster projections and start looking at different players for the season. So that's going to be what's going on over there at Chiefs Corner. There is a lot to talk about injury-wise, which is never a good thing, but here we are.
Yeah, right.
I guess I will say this. The Chiefs have stayed pretty healthy throughout camp, so we can't complain too much.
I'm with you there. It sucks that it comes in the last couple of days of camp, but, honestly, a lot of teams have a lot worse problems. So what we understand is the big three, Juju Smith-Schuster, Mecole Hardman, Chris Jones. What we have from updates today is that there is a possibility that Chris Jones and Mecole Hardman could even play against the Commanders. I doubt we see that, but just having it as a possibility, I think, reassures most fans, and I think the team itself, that, okay, these are minor injuries. They have to be obviously maintained and understood, but nothing critical at this point.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you on that. I think that the big question I have is, obviously, if they don't play this week, they're not playing. I think they're probably done with the preseason if neither of them play this week. So, and the one you didn't mention was Juju Smith-Schuster, and it doesn't sound like Reed thinks he's going to be back for the game, but he could practice next week. So his preseason is likely done as well.
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to get guys a few reps in the third preseason game, but I don't know that Chris Jones needs them. I don't know. Patrick certainly doesn't.
Yeah, I just don't know that they're going to play the starters. They usually don't put the starters in there in the third preseason game.
It's interesting because I'm not sure what usually means yet. I think Andy's still playing around with it. It seems like there's a lot of, the three preseason game thing, I think, has Andy still experimenting, which I think is kind of the overarching keyword for this whole camp. It feels different to me overall. Does it to you?
In some ways, I think they kind of got back to what they like to do and how they like to do things. And I think that the past 2 years have been a little bit different because we've been dealing with different things in the world, and you weren't able to have an open camp like you were this year. So I think that plays a little bit into it. But I also think that Andy knows what he has in this team, and he has the veteran leadership on the team to be able to do pretty much whatever he wants and get it done.
Yeah, that's fair. And so getting it done is where we're looking at today. It's nice to get wins. I don't think anybody's too concerned about the Chicago Bears loss last week. The only things people have seemed to be focused on are Bears fans. And, hey, you got to take away what you can take away. But at the end of the day, what this is about is moving yourself toward the regular season. And in the absence of those players, and let's assume none of them are going to play against the Commanders, what we should see is opportunities for guys that are closer to the bubble. In practice, when Chris Jones went out, it was Turk Wharton that got his snaps. I think that's fairly significant because in terms of just the depth chart, whether it's Noddy or Shelton starting, those guys are kind of in their own role together, working more over the nose, working more in the A gap. Whereas Chris Jones, it has to be at a 3-tech. I don't think you want to put him any farther inside. And so it is pass rush snaps. Did that surprise you that it was Turk that got the most of his snaps?
No, that's actually something that I have in my roster projection. Is I think Wharton is the third guy off the bench right now. I'm not going to say Shelton isn't going to become that guy, and maybe even maybe challenge Naughty depending on how he looks throughout the preseason and getting into the regular season. But I do think that Warden is the third DT, and he's the other guy in that lineup that can give you interior pass rush.
I wonder if Shelton doesn't eventually even become the guy that starts next to Chris Jones just to get the first downs kind of out of the way.
Yeah, that's kind of what my thought process is.
And so we'll see how that goes along. But that gives Turk more opportunity. That, in turn, gives Colin Saunders more opportunity, who, as we saw last week, by the rotations of the snap numbers, you would think that along the defensive line, it is in that order where Turk and Colin Saunders are the next. Stallworth was behind. Dickerson was behind, although I did like a couple things I saw from Dickerson against the Bears.
Yeah, and Dickerson, you start talking about, is going to be more of a guy that you're going to be looking at the practice squad. I just don't see there's any room for him on this roster, even though maybe there were a couple of nice things he did in the game, but there just isn't room at that position for keeping a fifth guy, really, even. So that's going to be the big question I have. I can't see them keeping more than 4 defensive tackles.
Yeah, I find that hard to believe too. Like 5 at the absolute max, but I think the acquisition of Shelton, who I do think will make the roster, I think spells the end for Stallworth. And then, like you said, Dickerson to the practice squad makes a whole lot of sense.
Well, but that also probably spells the end for Colin Saunders too.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think Collins looked pretty spry and pretty good so far in camp.
Okay, well then you think they're going to keep 5 DTs?
That's the way I'm leaning at the moment.
Okay, I can't see that. Just based on roster numbers at other positions, I can't see them keeping that many defensive tackles. I could be wrong. We'll see. That's not how I had it in my roster projection, but we'll see going forward. And I think that there's a lot of other things we need to talk about getting into this game, a lot of other key positions, and guys coming back from injury that didn't play in game 1 that are going to play in game 2.
Yeah, we're going to get that in a minute, folks. We will have our roster rundown next week. Don't miss that. But everybody needs a little bit of help from time to time, whether it's hindsight or whether it's talking to your future self and getting a little bit of a nudge in the right direction. Maybe you'd ask to borrow a little cash. We have a way to help you with that right now. And you can do it with Dave. Dave is the banking app that can help you get $500 of instant cash just for signing up instantly. The program is called Extra Cash, and it's super easy. It's more money to fill your tank, to buy gifts, to pay your bills, to get everything done that you need to get done with that extra bit of scratch. You can finally tackle those expenses that are stressing you out and really giving you some hangups. There's no interest. There's no credit check. Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app and gotten the financial relief that they need with Extra Cash. So no matter what your situation is, free cash is free cash. So check it out. Download the Dave app right now from any app store. That is DAVE, like the guy's name. Sign up for the Extra Cash account and get your $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees do apply. Banking is provided by Evolve, member FDIC. Your future you is going to thank you. So let's get to it. Yeah. Go.
I was just going to say, the guy that I'm most looking forward to seeing in this is going to be Jody Fortson. Obviously, there's another guy that I think is probably a little bit more important, especially on defense, in Rashad Fenton. But I think Fortson, seeing what he's able to do, and if he's looking anything like what he looked like before his injury, because this is really our first glimpse of him on the field.
Yeah, I agree. That's number one in my book, is how it seems like he jumped into the practice level pretty smoothly. How much does that translate? How much can he get up to game speed, even though we all know he's been through plenty of preseasons? That shouldn't be the issue, but it is that stepping stone towards September. That's key and important. I think that alleviates some of the issues we saw with some of the younger guys having to jump into the mix. I think everyone needs to continue to see Trent McDuffie do his thing. I think he was solid in the first outing. I think he can continue to press, make sure he's got everything down. But I do think that being the first round draft pick is not by coincidence. He is separated from both Josh Williams as well as Jalen Watson, who I think are both pushing to make this roster. And I wouldn't have said that a few weeks ago when camp started. I would have thought one or the other of Josh or Jalen would make it. Now I'm pretty convinced both. But Rashad's a guy that can help them both because he has that physicality that is so unique to this roster. Along the lines of what we've seen from Preseason and Sean Smith before. But both Jalen and Josh have that ability in them, whereas I do see Trent McDuffie as more of a technician. Do you see it differently?
No, I agree with you. I think he's more of a technician. I think that he needs to continue showing what he has shown so far in preseason. And I think what fans are going to have to realize is that he's going to have a very, very tough test week 2. And if he gets abused in week 2, don't think that that's the Trent McDuffie you're going to see the rest of the season or, the rest of his career. It's too early in his career to really judge, and going up against the Chargers in your second NFL game is going to be very difficult. I do think that he is going to play well this season. I think he's going to be able to help Kansas City, but that week 2 matchup worries me just a little bit because it's really going to be his first big test. I mean, the Cardinals are the Cardinals, and I guess they have some weapons too in Hopkins, but their weapons are anything like the Chargers, and Kyler Murray is not Justin Herbert. So
it's funny that you said it's his first big test because Mike Williams is pretty happy to see some rookies starting for the Chiefs. Mike Williams has the size to really, like MVS, give Trent some trouble. So that is going to be a huge, huge obstacle for him. That's one of the things that I want to see some more. I want to see Trent McDuffie be a little bit more demonstrative against the Commanders here. He's going to get Diami Brown. He's going to get some other players that maybe obviously aren't up to the Mike Williams threshold, but should let him prepare. And the guy that you talked about on the other side, Jody Fortson, back at practice, but do you think that we see him much? Because I'm trying to temper my expectations.
I don't know that we see him as much as I would like to, but at the same time, this is maybe his chance of getting a lot of action would be this week. I don't think that they'll try to push him into week 3 a lot. I think that he could play some in week 3, but they also have young guys that they're going to want to get more reps. So the bigger question I have is, what does the team think he's capable of right now coming off his injury? He doesn't look like he's really been limited in training camp, but we also know practice isn't the same as a game. So how does that play into it, and what are they going to allow him to do? And, there's another guy that's coming back from injury. I think they will be in this game that we haven't even talked about yet, in Zane Anderson, which could be pushing for the roster if he's able to play well.
Yeah, I think we should get to him, but I want to stay on the tight ends for just a second because Blake Bell is still out as well. Yep. So like Patrick said about the first preseason action is Patrick likes to get a hit in, and I think that has to be the case for everyone, including Jody Fortson. So he's got to get enough reps that he gets bumped around gets that contact and kind of ups his level there, even if he's not running a ton of routes or not trying to stress out his lower body. I think that it is smart to kind of limit those. But I think that's imperative because Matt Bushman is going to be the fourth tight end at this point. Franks has had a couple of nice grabs at the tight end position in camp. So the question becomes, if there's any lingering issue with Jody and Blake Bell is out for any foreseeable time, that limits who they can put on the 53. And so it is Travis and it is Noah Gray right now. I thought it had a decent start to the preseason. But then who can be a 3? Is it Bushman? Is it Franks? Who else could make that roster? And that's, I think, going to be key for this game.
I look at that, and I don't think that they keep anybody else. Just in my opinion, if Bell is not able to play and he ends up going on IR or he ends up being out for any length of time, I think they only keep 3 tight ends. I don't think they keep 4. I think that they have so many other positions that they're going to need to worry about trying to get roster spots that they're going to be keeping only 3 tight ends if Bell's not available. I like what Bushman has brought at times. Franks looked okay, but I don't think either of those guys are guys that you're going to worry about losing if you can't bring them back on the practice squad if you want them.
Yeah, I agree. Let's put a pin in the tight end and see who steps up. Maybe somebody can, but there are other players that we need to get more from in this second preseason game for them to have a chance. And we'll talk about Zane as well.
Let me tell you about my friends over at BetterHelp. There is a time in my life where life threw me a curveball. I was looking for a new job, trying to figure out what it was I wanted to do. And BetterHelp is a place that I actually reached out to try to find what I wanted to do for my job, what I wanted to do, and how I was going to do it. And BetterHelp has really been a huge help for me. Life is full of twists and turns. It is important to show up for yourself through it all. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online, available to people worldwide. You can log into your account anytime and send a message to your therapist, which is very useful because they can respond within hours. And you have an answer to something where normal therapy, you would have a situation where maybe you see them once a week, maybe you see them twice a month, just depends. But you could be without answers for quite some time. You can schedule weekly video and phone sessions so you don't have to be on camera if you don't want to. Getting therapy every week is as easy as a few clicks on your laptop or phone. Both the laptop and phone are great options. I've used both, and I do think that BetterHelp is the way to go if you're looking for someone to be there to help you and answer some questions for you. And they have a special offer for our listeners right now. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's 10% off your first month of online therapy at BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
Can I just say that I'm very happy that you decided to bring up a guy on the defensive side of the ball first.
I'm sure you are. You always like it when we go defense.
I do, right? Hey, you shore that up. This changes this team completely. Now, you brought up Zane Anderson, and I haven't had a chance to actually see him do much yet. So I'm really intrigued because I thought he gave you some snaps last year that were valuable and that he has enough to build on. But before we get to him specifically, what did you think about the rest of the backup safeties last week? Because the guy that I think he's in competition with is Deion Bush and Deion Bush alone.
No, and I agree with you completely. And right now I have Deion Bush on my 53-man projection, mainly because I haven't seen Zane Anderson. Not really hearing anything about Zane Anderson at camp. What we saw from him last year, I think he was able to step in and provide help on special teams, but is he going to be able to grow in that role? And is he going to be a guy that they can rely on if one of the safeties gets hurt? Because Spagnuolo loves his 3 safety sets. Yes, his main job is going to be special teams. Can he be that guy? I think he can. I think he showed it last year, even though he struggled at times with special teams.
Yeah, I think so as well. Brad Cook is clearly the third, so it's not much of a question here. But it is about who's going to play the teams, who's going to be able to step into the role should one of the big 3 go down. Because we've seen, some guys have to miss a game here or there. Certainly, we're not expecting any catastrophic injuries. That's not what we're talking about. But, if there's a lingering, hip flexor or hamstring thing or whatever, and one of the top 3 safeties have to miss 2 games, who can actually fulfill that role and help them run their 3 safety sets without having to change their entire game plan? I'm not sure that I buy that it's actually Deion Bush, though. So then it becomes, like you said, special teams over ability to fill in, or what do you think?
Oh, no, I think it has to be a combination of the two. Deion Bush is known for his special teams play. It's what he did with Chicago. That's what he would mainly do in Kansas City. He wasn't known as a safety and a guy that was really going to help at the back end of the defense. So the question becomes, is he stellar enough on special teams? And that's the key difference is if he's good on special teams, but Zane Anderson's okay or maybe a little bit above average, but below the good, is that enough? Do they think he can contribute on defense enough to offset the difference in special teams play? Because it's always going to be one of those things where it's just between the 2 different players who's going to be your better special teamer and can they contribute somewhat equally on defense. And I'm not sure Bush can, and we haven't seen enough from Zane Anderson to know he can yet.
Yeah. Let's hope that he can. I think this will be very telling to see who plays how many snaps. That's going to be key here. The other key thing, and there's 2 more positions I want to talk about, but I need somebody that wears a number that starts with a 7 to step up. There is no swing tackle on this roster right now. I don't care what you say or what you've seen. If you're just watching film, there is no legitimate swing tackle. From Jaron Christian to Roderick Johnson to Kennard. Somebody's got to come take that job, or the Chiefs have to go get an acquisition after this game.
Don't disagree. That's a huge question going into this game, and one of those 3 has to step up. And the other thing that we don't know, and I would hope that the team isn't counting on Niang being able to step in anytime in the near future, because he's been out so long at this point. He's going to need time to acclimate, and you can't afford to have your swing tackle be a guy that is still trying to get used to game speed.
And as of now, he's not working on the sideline. We don't see him jogging. We've heard nothing about any activity at all. And that is, again, what is kind of lending itself towards our position that it's probably midseason at best right now. We'll see how that comes along. The roster roll there onto the 53 on IR, whatever has to happen, that's going to be interesting for him because, like you said, if you do project him like late in the season or into the playoffs being your backup swing, like you have to do something to get him there. And that I think that's going to be problematic.
He could be on the pup list. That's where he is right now. He could stay on the pup list, and he's out till at least week 6. Yeah. So, and then they have a three week schedule to start activating him, and they can go, I think, as late as week 11. I think before they start that 3 week schedule. And then if they're not off that, if they don't start practicing by then they go on IR. So
that's going to be a challenge
right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's going to be a challenge. The other thing that I need to see this game against the Washington Commanders is that who's going to make this roster at the linebacker spot? Jermaine Carter's in a fight, I think, with 2 rookies in Mike Rose and Jack Cochran. I think Cochran actually looked a little bit fleeter against the Bears. I think Rose looked a little bit stronger, which I didn't expect necessarily. But neither of them is displacing, and none of the 3 of those guys is displacing Leo Chanel. I know he played late and he didn't play with the ones, and that's fine. His draft stock means he is not going anywhere, folks. So he will be on this roster. And I think Elijah Lee has himself supplanted. So there's only one more spot left in my mind between, and honestly, we should throw Darius Harris in here too, right? Because he got some green dot reps. So 4 guys for 1 spot.
Yeah, and I think Carter's probably going to be the guy that gets it, to be quite honest. I think his special teams play is going to put him over the top on that. The question that becomes when you start getting into that is, obviously Chanel is going to be on this team. So last year, if you look back at last year, you had Ben Neiman who stepped in and was like the dime linebacker role, or one of those guys that went in there for specific situations. And yeah, he didn't play well. I get it, whatever. But is Carter a guy that can step in and do that? I'm not so sure. I mean, or do you have a guy that can step in and do that? Because you're taking away something that you used a ton last year. And I don't know if you have that guy in Carter or Harris.
Yeah. I hopefully they won't need it, and that either Nick Bolton or Willie Gay can be a guy that stays on the field more, and you don't have to do that bulk sub kind of thing. We're going to have to see how it goes. But we want to know what you guys want to see against the Commanders in the second preseason game. We have a lot coming for you. We will have coverage. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this preview. If you would like sub and hit the bell on YouTube and hit us in those Spotify reviews, we would very much appreciate it. Thanks for getting ready for this game with us. Enjoy it, and we'll talk to you next time.